grab some tea and get cozy. This is a discussion video and we haven't done this in a while. This is nice. Indian chai, so good. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm OhSheReads and this is OhSheReads, and it's that time of year again. It's the time of year where I'm pretty much going through all of the books I read in 2017, reviewing everything in the hopes of compiling a best books I read in 2017 video. Does that make sense? I'm basically looking back at everything, taking stock, trying to remember and pinpoint the best books that I read this year. And I noticed something. I noticed that I read 95% on my Kindle this year. I couldn't find barely any physical books in my list. Most of the books I read were ebooks, and most of the books I read were in the new adult and the adult fiction genre. And I also noticed that most of the books I read were romance and or mystery or coming of age. So that's really not anything new, but I'm starting to notice that as the years pass, I'm reading more and more on my Kindle, and I'm reading less physical books. But that doesn't stop me from buying books. In fact, I continue to pre-order books from my favorite authors, mostly in the young adult genre, and I continue to receive these books, and I continue to collect these books. So just thinking about all of this brought forth an interesting question that I wanted to talk about today. And that question is physical books versus ebooks. And you know, in the world that we live in today, we consume most of our media electronically, and we consume most of our media via social media on our phones. Also, you know, on our computers, on our iPads, just in general on our electronic devices. And that has become the truth for reading as well. More and more I see people reading more on their iPads, on their phones, on their e-readers, and less I see people carrying around physical books. Now this presents an interesting dilemma. I would definitely say that there is an age demographic for this. The older people I see still carry around books. I would say ages like mid-40s and up, I'm still pretty much going to see people in that age bracket with a physical book and carrying around a physical book. But once again, that 40s age bracket is kind of funny because it can go either way. But I would say 40s and down into, let's say, 12. I see a lot of iPads and I see a lot of e-readers. So I definitely see the switch, but it has me thinking, what does that mean for the future of physical books? What does that mean for the future of print? And it's an interesting dilemma because you have someone like myself who, if it wasn't for my book buying habits, I probably wouldn't be buying any more books. I would probably be reading solely electronically because, like I said, I went through all of the books that I read in 2017 thus far, and 95% of my reading was done electronically. I barely read any physical books. And yet, because I'm a book collector, because I'm a book buyer, and I enjoy physically having books in my home, I enjoy the smell of new books, I enjoy even the smell of old books. I love going to the library. I love the art form of the book. Everything from the binding to the cover art to just the way it's put together. I find books to be very beautiful. I look at them as a way to decorate my home in a way, not just the content within them. I appreciate the book in its entirety. I love the aesthetic of it, of having bookshelves and these beautiful bindings. So for me, it goes so much deeper than, you know, a black and white issue of, okay, well, if you're not actually reading these physical books as much as you are reading electronically, stop buying physical books. I can never imagine myself not owning books. Does that make sense? It's a very interesting dilemma, and I feel like it's only going to become more and more exaggerated as we move forward into the future. And I can only imagine what the world is going to be like in 10, 15, 20 years. Are, books going to become obsolete in a way? Are books going to become a luxury or a collector's item? I mean, we already see it now with bookstores, especially the independent bookstores. They're shutting down, and we see even just outside of the fiction world, when you move into the academic world, more and more classes are having their students buy electronic textbooks and are having their students do their homework electronically. And it's so foreign in my experience, because when I was in school, everything was still paper. I mean, obviously we typed up our papers and turned them in electronically, but we didn't have our textbooks electronically. We didn't, it's so insane. And those of you who are in school now, you can attest to this, but the world is slowly but surely shifting towards a paperless future. So that has me thinking about the future of publishing. And is that in trouble? Is the publishing industry in trouble, or will people always buy physical books? I can only speak for myself. I know I will always buy physical books, whether I read them or not. As funny as that sounds, I will always collect books. I enjoy collecting books. I find them to be beautiful, and I see the value in a physical book. And I still want the option, the more options the better. I like the idea of curling up in a nice armchair by a fire with a blanket and having a physical book, something you can touch and smell and feel. And something else I've noticed too is that I actually remember books more when I read them physically. Sometimes, because I am a really fast reader, I consume books and stories so quickly that when I'm reading on my e-reader, and I have a Kindle, when I'm reading on my e-reader, sometimes I'm reading so fast and I'm just flying through the pages. And once that book is done, I'm quickly just like, okay, on to the next. Let me download the next. Let me go consume the next. It creates a very consumerist type of relationship with reading, versus when I'm reading a physical book, there's something about touching the book. There's something about the tactile, part of it, feeling the book, turning the pages. It makes the story stay with me a lot longer. I remember the stories a lot more, the storylines. I could read a physical book, and let's say it's a book in a series, and let's say the next book doesn't come out for a year, and I can still remember vividly what happened. Is it because I touched it and therefore it touched me? Is it because I physically felt those pages and so the story stayed with me longer? It's really interesting, you guys, and it's something I've really been thinking about, because it's something I've noticed. Because I read primarily electronically, when I read series, if I don't read the books back to back to back, like if the books aren't all out, I've noticed that when the new book comes out and I go to download it, I'm struggling to remember what happened in the past book, in the book that came before. And I almost have to go back and read, a few chapters towards the end to kind of jog my memory. Or sometimes I'll go to Wikipedia, or I'll go to the Goodreads page or the Amazon page and jog my memory. And I don't do that when I read physical books. I can remember so much more and so much more vividly. So that's really interesting. I'm not sure what the connection is between touching the book and memory, but there's definitely a connection there. So yeah, you guys tell me what you think. Do you think that we're ever going to have a paperless society? And do you think the publishing industry is in trouble? And how do you consume your books? Or how do you read? Do you read primarily on an e-reader electronically, or are you still reading physical books? How do you guys feel about this topic? Because it's really fascinating. And we're going into 2018, and after that will come 2019, and God willing, we'll all be here in the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 or plus years. And it's going to be really fascinating to see how reading changes and how humans consume stories in the future, because we've already started to see a dramatic shift happening. So it's just something I wanted to talk about, because I've noticed how my reading habits have drastically changed over the past 10 years. Alright, well that's it for this video. I'm going to end right here. Definitely leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about this topic, and I will catch you all in my next video. Bye guys. Bye. It's Colleen Hoover Month! Yes, it is Colleen Hoover Month here on this channel for no particular reason except for the fact that I have a nasty habit of collecting Colleen Hoover books and